This hour on WMNH is proudly sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 171 Londonderry Turnpike in Hooksett. Serving all your employee benefits planning, design and administration, investment and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. They are available at 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
You are listening to WMNH-LP, Manchester's radio, broadcasting at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation from the top of 1000 Elm Street. Our studios are located at 1045 Elm Street and licensed to Manchester Public Television Service in Manchester, New Hampshire, USA. Contact us by email at WMNH953@gmail.com or through our website at WMNHradio.org.
High numbers of migrants.
Hey everybody, welcome to
the U.S. from Mexico. The Trump administration is considering plans to As high numbers of migrants continue to cross into the U.S. from Mexico, the Trump administration is considering plans to house unaccompanied migrant children at U.S. military bases. The Department of Health and Human Services confirmed to multiple outlets that officials are scheduled to tour vacant facilities Wednesday at Fort Benning in Georgia. Under current law, an unaccompanied child who arrives in the U.S. from a non-contiguous country is transferred over to the Department of Health and Human Services. The child then stays in HHS custody until officials can find a relative or sponsor in the U.S. to unite them with. As of the end of April, almost 41,000 children had been placed in the agency's care so far this fiscal year. And NBC News reports the growing influx of children has resulted in HHS shelters operating at almost 100% capacity. In order to come up with more housing options, HHS has been working with the Pentagon since April. Together, they're identifying which military bases have enough available space to hold up to 5,000 unaccompanied migrant children. It's pretty common for HHS to turn to the Pentagon for help in hosting migrants. Between 2012 and 2017, nearly 16,000 unaccompanied migrant children were housed on American military installations. Besides Fort Benning, the Pentagon told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that it's also looking at Fort Sill in Oklahoma and Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana.
I was broke, unemployed, I was starting to slouch. I was sleeping in the basement on my mama's new couch. That's when I heard it all, a chance to skirt it all. A money like my last girl. Completely virtual. Got the top graphic cards, got a power supply, a microprocessor, a motherboard, a tower and drive. I put the RAM in the RAM slot, drive in the larger bay. Topped it off, 2 fans, like a Chargers game. Price spiked to 30, I missed out, I fear. Crudely assemble a rig like a BP engineer. My friends and family smiling, smirking or make fun of me, but I'ma make them eat their words because I'm gonna be a Bitcoin billionaire, spending money like I don't care, mining corn in my underwear. I'm gonna be a Bitcoin billionaire. Selecting software and reading the notes, I'm picking out my favorite miners like a Penn State coach. Pick me a digital wallet for holding all my amounts. Read up on all the ways to open lots of accounts. I feel like Tom Brady, I got a fear of inflation, but this is crypto, baby, central bank decentralization. The script, I flipped it, laptop encrypted. My life was rotten, now all my cotton's ejected. Leaving on my vacation, I'm crypto supplying, and they call me gentrification, the way I'm block modifying. Friends asking, what's the best part of your newfound treasury? I say, reminding you how you told me I'd never be a Bitcoin billionaire, spending money like I don't care. Flash drives in the underwear, now that I'm a Bitcoin billionaire. The cash was never ending, yo, I'm scaling, fun and rowdy. I was spending like a 7 on a scale from 1 to Saudi. Call it mad banking, all night and all weekend. My rig is Al Franken, grabs what it can while you sleeping. Just try outspending me, and you'll see I'm on a mission. Drop more Satoshis than a clumsy Japanese. I'm basic to ASIC. I went from basement squatting to yachting, from basin to basin. Went from no friends and depression to peer-to-peer legend. More contrasting language to establish the impression I'm a Bitcoin billionaire, spending money like I don't care. Then one day there was a solar flare. I was a Bitcoin billionaire, spending money like I don't care. Now I just pawn my underwear. Used to be a Bitcoin billionaire. Any change that you can spare? I'd settle for a Dogecoin. I'm so desperate.
Yo.
Congress, you've got to let us know. Should he stay or should he go? If you say his time is come, it sets a needed rule of thumb. It's up to you, the yes or no. Should he stay or should he go? Perhaps you fear you might displease, but hey, there ain't no guarantees. One day it's dark, the next it's black, so we just want him off our back. 'Cause we've sunk to a new low and turned it into a show. The tumor's only gonna grow now. So will he stay or will he go now? If he goes, there will be trouble. And if he stays, it will be double. So come on and let us know. This indecision's bugging me. Which way is it gonna be? It all depends on your decree. You took an oath for your degree. So come on and let us know. Can you kill his TV show? Should he stay or should he go now? Voting yea or voting no now. If he goes, there will be trouble. And if he stays, it will be double. Which direction will we go? Will it be giddy up or woe? Should he stay or should he go now? There will be trouble. And it's now we want to know. Will he stay or will he go?
I stand up here giving speeches for an hour and a half, many times without notes.
You are a loser. You really are a loser.
It's one of my only good traits. I don't
Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's that time again. Matt Connarton, Unleashed in the Afternoon. We're live, emanating from WMNH 95.3 FM in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, where it's very, very humid. Of course, we're also on Comcast 97 in Manchester, streaming worldwide at WMNHradio.org, and on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Before I forget, we do have a frequent guest on the show, a contributor, if you will, who happens to have a birthday today.
Is that Ryan Gorman?
Yes, virtual John Hopwood. Today is Ryan Gorman's birthday, so happy birthday to Ryan Gorman. And a programming note, tomorrow on the program, I will have, still have the bookmark in it. I got this at the Bookery on Elm Street today. Tomorrow on the show, I will be joined right at the top of the show by Rob Azevedo. I should, for those of you watching on Facebook, I should put the camera on me so you can see me holding up the book here. Rob Azevedo, of course, author of Notes from the Last Breath Farm, A Music Junkie's Quest to be Heard. This just came out very, very recently. And Rob, of course, has been making the rounds. He's been on... So far, he's been interviewed about the book on The Morning Show with Peter White, which you can hear, of course, weekday mornings, 7 to 9 a.m. And he was also recently on the weekly Die On talking about the book. And tomorrow afternoon, he'll be on this program. Rob, of course, also hosts a great show called Granite State of Mind, which you can hear every Friday night at 6 p.m. right here on WMNH. And, where he interviews musicians and he has live musicians coming and playing and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to talking to Rob about this book. I've never actually interviewed him, even though he is active in the music scene through, the show that he does and whatnot. He also does another version of Granite State of Mind on another station as well. So he's interviewed. He's probably interviewed as many musicians as I have, maybe even more. I don't know. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to read this tonight. It's a light read. It's a little over 100 pages. And I read fast, so I'm gonna use the Peter White approach. Peter read the book the night before, so it would be fresh in his mind in the morning. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna read this tonight. Once I start reading something, I tend to like to finish it. Unless it's an enormous book like War and Peace or something, or It by Stephen King, which I actually never read. I read a lot of Stephen King when I was a kid. I never read It. It was just too big. It was too daunting for me. I was intimidated by it. I've never seen the movie either, but anyway. I digress. So really looking forward to that. So Rob Azevedo will be here on the show tomorrow, and I have to get his autograph, too, on the book because Jenny wants an autographed copy of the book. So she's looking forward to reading that as well. Let's see. Today is, of course, Wednesday, June 5th, 2019. The number to call is 603-250-6007 anytime in the next hour and 45 minutes or so. 603-250-6007. I do see Jenny in the Facebook live chat, as well as Fred Bonig from the Daily Ripple. Also, Wayne Noel joins us in there. Hello, Wayne. I see Rocky Huber in there. Rocky messaged me on Facebook earlier. I don't think Rocky will mind if I share this, talking about, yesterday I was talking about the tariffs, Trump's tariffs that he wants to put on Mexico, and I got pretty animated about it. It was a fairly serious show yesterday. And Rocky messaged me today and said he wanted to say this yesterday in the Facebook live chat, but because it was kind of a serious show, he decided to hold back on it. But he wanted to point out that, because we talk about border walls, in China, they have the Great Wall of China, and they don't have any Mexicans getting through there. But, and I wish, Rocky, I would have read that if you had put that in the Facebook live chat yesterday. I don't mind a spontaneous levity during a serious discussion. Also, hello to Tony Petrello in the Facebook live chat. So, of course, that is one of the ways that you can communicate with us during the live program. Like I said, you can also call us at 603-250-6007. Let's see. I guess let's do this because the other day on the show, was it earlier this week or was it at the end of last week? It all blends together, my friends. But, Kenneth Copeland, the pastor, he's got a mega church, and he he's got a private jet, and we played the clip for you, the full clip. There's this 11 minutes. It's 11 minutes in total. The conversation with the reporter from Inside Edition who approached Kenneth Copeland and was asking him about, is it really appropriate for a preacher to have a private jet? And what about this comment you made about you can't fly commercial because it's like being stuck in a tube full of demons? Hello to Bob Burrell, Bobby B in the house, in the Facebook live chat. And which I suppose it can seem that way. I mean, especially like if there's screaming children on board, that is like being in a tube of demons, right? I don't have any children of my own. I don't know if you can tell. Anywho, I have no paternal instinct whatsoever. So we played the clip of Kenneth Copeland being sort of ambushed. Although I'm not using the term as a pejorative. I mean, it's great. It's actually reminds me of what Dave Ridley does. Dave Ridley from the Ridley Report, who we haven't heard from in a long time. He does that. He calls them ambush interviews or ambush journalism, where he approaches politicians and other public officials when they don't expect to be, and asks them questions that they might be uncomfortable with. But I think that's a good thing to do that. And so does he, obviously. So this reporter from Inside Edition, I didn't know Inside Edition was even still on, but apparently it is. It still exists. So this reporter had approached Kenneth Copeland and put him on the spot about his private jet that he apparently bought from Tyler Perry. And I hope that when Tyler Perry showed up to sell him the jet, that he showed up in full Medea garb, and I don't know if Tyler Perry still plays that character. Have you ever seen any of the Medea movies, by the way? They are really, really bad. I mean, no offense to anyone listening who enjoys those, but you have awful taste in comedy if you do enjoy those. They're not funny, and you should probably be a little bit ashamed for enjoying them. Anyway, having said that, that was terribly judgmental of me, but look, I mean, there are things on which reasonable people can disagree, and there's also Tyler Perry's Medea movies. I mean, they're just really, really just... never mind. I had to sit through one once for reasons which I'm not going to get into now. Okay, so this guy, Stephen Strang, is defending him. Apparently, he's a preacher of his own. Now, he's one of these. This is from my favorite website, of course, rightwingwatch.org. Stephen Strang defends preacher Kenneth Copeland's private jet, and it says here that Strang is a prosperity gospel preacher. Now, for those of you who don't know what prosperity gospel is, it's this, and this is what all the megachurch guys do. Because if you've ever sat and wondered, okay, how does this square? These guys are rich. They're surrounded by opulence and all this wealth, with their very expensive cars, and they live in these mansions, and they have these Olympic-sized swimming pools and all this. They're clearly living a high life, which seems to be the opposite of what Jesus did and what he tried to teach us to do, and there is that, the Inside Edition reporter mentioned it, of course, to Kenneth Copeland, when she confronted him about the thing in the Bible, and I'll probably get it wrong. I'm not much of a theologian, believe it or not, but something about it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven, and so forth. And what these prosperity gospels guys teach is that no, never mind about that. God actually wants you to be wealthy. God actually wants you to be a greedy, a gluttonous, selfish prick. That's the best way to honor God, is to be very, very rich. Because it means that you are a holy person yourself. Because God wants you to have abundance, and if you have abundance, it means that God favors you. That's what they teach you. Jenny says it wasn't me. Right, no, it was not Jenny who... Jenny had nothing to do with me having to sit through one of the Medea movies. It happened a long time ago. And it was... look, I'm still traumatized from it. I don't know if we actually... I don't know if I got through the whole thing, now that I'm thinking about it. I may have vomited into a bucket at some point during the film. I mean, they're that bad. You can't argue with success. I realize Tyler Perry, very, very wealthy and successful from those movies, but they're seriously awful. Like, if you enjoy them, there's something wrong. You have a problem. There's something wrong in your head if you enjoy those movies. And it's got nothing to do with the cross-dressing, Medea dressing, Tyler Perry dressing up as this character. And it's got nothing to do with that. I don't care about that. Do what you want. But at least try to be funny and clever about it. Anyway. So the prosperity gospel guys say, if you have abundance, God wants you to have abundance. And if you have abundance, it means that God loves you a little bit more than those poor people. And don't worry about the Jesus stuff, because none of this squares with anything Jesus actually said, but don't worry about that. Which actually is a pretty broad concept in modern Christianity anyway, right? Don't worry about anything Jesus said. That's all, So just interpret it whatever way is convenient for you politically. That's the real message of the Gospels. So anyway, and these prosperity gospel guys, by the way, they're part of my theory. I know some of you are probably sick of me working Trump into absolutely everything, but I gotta say, and I've said it on the show before, part of my one of my theories about why Trump was able to connect with the evangelicals so quickly and so easily. I mean, here you have Trump, this guy who said in an interview once, when asked about it, if he had ever asked the Lord for forgiveness, which I kind of thought was part of the deal of being a Christian, he said, no, if he does something bad and he feels badly about it, he tries to do something good to make up for it or whatever. But he said the God thing doesn't really enter into it for him. He literally said that. And apparently Christians everywhere went, okay, good enough. He's never asked God for forgiveness. He's never said that he accepts Christ as his Lord and Savior, but we just believe he's a great Christian. Look, he's rich. He has all this abundance. So God must favor him. So he must be a very godly man. So what if he, raw dogged a porn star while his wife was home with their newborn baby? So what? He's clearly a man of God. I mean, he talks about it, right? So we're going to believe everything he says. No, but part of why I think Trump is so it's so easy for him to fool the evangelicals is because, I mean, and if you ever listen to him talk, I mean, he sounds like he's mocking. He actually sounds like he's mocking them. Like I've often talked about this one campaign event where he's talking to these evangelicals, and somebody in the crowd has a copy of Art of the Deal, and Trump sees that. He goes, Art of the Deal, that's my second favorite book, but you all know what my first favorite book is, right? The Bible. Yes, the Bible. And he's so smarmy about it, the way that he says it. Like, if insincerity were a fluid, it would be just dripping out of his pores as he talks, right? And I know in his mind he's going, listen to these people. They just believe anything I tell them. The Bible's his favorite book. Sure, buddy. But they just eat it up and they're cheering and they're like, yay, Trump loves the Bible. Yay. But anyway, getting back to my theory and how this connects with prosperity gospel. And by the way, most Christians I know personally reject this whole prosperity gospel nonsense, but or at least they think that they do. Because part of my theory why it's so easy for Trump to fool evangelicals is because evangelicals are very used to and accustomed to turning on their televisions on Sunday mornings and seeing a con man in a $10,000 suit saying, send me money, support me, do what I tell you to do, and I'll get you into heaven. So subconsciously, they're used to that. They're attuned to that. So they see a guy like Trump and they go, oh, yeah, he's clearly a man of God, even though by any measure, no, he is not. but you're just going to believe it and eat it up because he's a rich guy in an expensive suit saying, support me. And he told you the Bible's his favorite book. So there you go. Anyway. Oh, hello to Ed Murphy, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. But so here's this guy, Stephen Strang. He's a prosperity gospel preacher and Trump evangelical advisor. I'm sorry. He's a actually, Kenneth Copeland is a Trump evangelical advisor. I'm sorry. Yeah, Copeland is. Now, see, that part I didn't realize. Copeland is not Strang. Okay, so Copeland was in the news recently. And now this guy's Strang. Oh, okay, Stephen Strang is the publisher of Charisma Magazine. And he's come to Copeland's defense. And he has a podcast where he did so. So what I'm going to do, and I didn't pre-listen to this because I like to just listen to this for the first time with you guys. Here it is. This is Stephen Strang defending Kenneth Copeland's private jet. Let's give this a listen. I'm sure this is great.
There's a number of large ministries that have airplanes. And why is this so controversial? This reporter took a comment that Kenneth Copeland apparently made. I have not verified this with him. I'm just going by what's on Inside Edition, that he didn't like to be in a tube with a bunch of demons. Well, you know, Brother Copeland has a sense of humor. And in certain settings, he would describe what goes on in airplanes. It is like a tube. It's very crowded. And, he'd be speaking a little bit in hyperbole. But there are people in those airplanes who are not spiritual. Sometimes they have to haul them off because they get into fights with each other.
That happens all the time. I can't remember the last time I was on a flight where some sort of brawl didn't break out. And actually, though, here's the thing. Now, I'll believe it or not, I'll defend Copeland on this because, Strang raises an interesting point. Sometimes there's people on these flights, they're not Christians, they're not believers, they might get a little out of control. And didn't Jesus say, avoid people who are non-believers, stay away from the sinners, even though you're all a bunch of sinners, because there's no saving them anyway. I'm pretty sure. Didn't Jesus? I'm a very, very, very lapsed Catholic, so I might remember a few things wrong here. Like I said, I'm not a theologian, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got that right. I think Jesus said, yeah, people who are not believers, just leave them alone. They'll just, they're going to end up in hell anyway. Who cares? I think that's what Jesus said. So this makes sense.
Airplane these days, a commercial airline is a flying bar. They serve alcohol. A lot of people, they don't get too tipsy because they won't serve them that much. But, there's a lot of things that are not spiritual. It's not necessarily a good environment. And Brother Copeland makes this point. He also made the point that he was not talking about the people. He was talking about principalities and powers, which we as Christians believe. The Bible says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And there are sort of demonic activities. There can be kind of an oppression, just an atmosphere. And someone like Kenneth Copeland, who's flying to crusades, and in fact, he told about how he had to fly recently from Africa over to Peru to be involved in two different meetings, and he couldn't do that, of course, unless he didn't have his own airplane. Going back to the reporter, she kept saying, well, she was talking about the people in the airplane. Apparently, she just was really focusing on the fact that he didn't want to fly commercial because of the kind of people that are on airplanes. Well, you know what? You could make the same argument about a bus.
Well, that's the thing. He doesn't know it. Maybe he's not that bright. I don't know. But now he's countering his own point, right? Because you could say so. So he's making the argument that, well, it makes sense that Copeland wouldn't want to get on the Tube of Demons, also known as an airplane, because he doesn't want to be surrounded by all that sin. But just walking around and existing in the world, you're surrounded by it in theory, right? If that's your point of view. So what's the problem? I mean, look, I haven't flown in a while, I'll be honest with you, but I mean, I used to fly more regularly, and I don't recall seeing a lot of, I might have a different standard for sin, but I just don't recall seeing a lot of, I don't recall seeing a lot of alcohol, I mean, this guy makes it sound like, it's just when you're on an airplane, it's just this big party, and Kenneth Copeland can't be around that. But, I just don't remember it being much of, I remember flying as generally being kind of a miserable experience. You're sitting in this uncomfortable seat. You're kind of crammed in there with these people you don't know, and it's a little bit claustrophobic, and it's not a party at all, to be honest with you, at least from what I remember. Maybe I just always flew on the wrong airlines, but I remember it being kind of miserable, right? But you know what? I just realized something, though. Maybe the thing that was making the experience so miserable was all the demons. Okay, now it's starting to come together in my mind. I was on a Tube of Demons. It was supposed to be miserable. You know what? That's probably what hell is like, being on an airplane. And you think you're having a great time and it's a big party, but it's actually an eternity of misery. I don't know. Well, I was never on like a super long flight. I'm just saying, I just, my perception of flying is a little different. Okay.
Greyhound bus. And taking a bus is a whole lot less expensive than buying a car, making payments on it, paying the insurance, paying the gas and maintenance on it. But I'll tell you what, almost nobody takes the bus unless they have no other option, because
Well, no one wants to ride on a bus of demons. I mean, you could have a bus of demons. You could have a car full of demons. You could have an Amtrak train full of demons. I mean, they could be everywhere. My goodness. I'm afraid to travel, to be honest with you. Let's see. Ed Murphy says in the Facebook live chat, unbelievable, these guys have to be taxed. That's true. We don't tax churches in this country. Ed says, restaurants have alcohol and bars. How much you want to bet he goes to top-notch restaurants? That's true. Well, but here's the thing, though. Maybe he figures that where there's food, the demons will be less bothersome because they're too busy stuffing their faces to make any evil mischief. Bobby B says, I thought driving a truck was good, honest work, good money, something I could be proud of. I guess God hates me. Shake my head. I'm going to become a priest. Oh, my goodness. Father Bob. Well, all right, Bob. If you want, you can, or you can do you can be a universal life minister. I think you can just do that online. I'm not trying to discourage you from entering the seminary, but that's a long commitment. And I think you'll have to be celibate. But these are your life choices to make.
It is so inconvenient. And listen, I haven't taken the bus in a long time, but there was a time around the time I was in college that, I took the bus one time, a 24-hour bus trip. It was quite an experience from Florida up to Missouri. I had to get up there, and I guess I couldn't afford an airplane ticket back then. But, part of it is that if we have the means for a car, it gets us where we need to go when we need to go. If you have the means for an airplane, whether you're a politician or a businessman or the head of a large ministry with hundreds of employees, with ministry locations all over the world, you do that, especially when you have to fly with a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of equipment. It gets expensive buying airplane tickets if you have a lot of people going to the same place at the same time. I have no criticism of Copeland having an airplane if they can afford it, if their donors have, sent them the money.
Right. All right. Well, that's the end of the clip. At the end of the day, I really, it's something to have fun with, but do I personally have a problem with it per se? No. I mean, the people who are dumb enough to send him money and are okay with him then using that money to buy that airplane to travel around the world in this lavish lifestyle that he has, whatever. I mean, it's a business. Prosperity gospel is a business, and but what's interesting to me, what I find so fascinating about Kenneth Copeland, and I'd never really watched enough of him to realize this until I saw that clip. And if you haven't seen the whole thing, you owe it to yourself to go on YouTube, not right now, but later. Go on YouTube. Just type in Kenneth Copeland Inside Edition. This guy, is right out of Central Casting. If you were making a movie, if you were casting a film, a comedy, and you needed a really over-the-top sort of caricature of what one of these megachurch guys would be for this film, it would be Kenneth Copeland. He could literally just play himself. Almost to the point where watching him, I kind of wondered, actually, I guess I didn't really wonder this exactly because I already know, like my theory is, of course, about all these guys, whether it's Kenneth Copeland or Jim Baker with his food buckets that he sells, or, all these guys, I believe, are atheists. I don't think that they believe in God at all, because if they did, they'd be extremely afraid of the consequences of what they do, prospering from religion in this way. Because that part I'm pretty sure of. Like I said, not much of a theologian, but I do remember the story of Christ overturning the tables and getting pretty angry in the temple when they were, the money changers, as I think they're called in the Bible, when they were selling stuff. Yeah, not supposed to do that. But again, I mean, who needs all that Jesus stuff to be a good Christian, right? It's very inconvenient because Jesus talked a lot about, caring about other people and, clothing them and feeding them and, all that kind of thing. And boy, what a pain that is, right? Let's see. All right, let's move on. This is from Reason.com. And this actually, before we do that, let me give the number again, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. Reason.com has a story up that kind of encompasses a couple of different issues, your First Amendment rights, and, of course, this also involves, in some way, the war on drugs, or as I like to refer to it, the government's war on the American people. So this is from Reason, from their free speech section. HempFest sues Washington's marijuana regulators for censoring sponsors' signs. The Seattle Festival's organizers argue that banning signs referring to state-licensed cannabis businesses violates the state and federal constitutions. So this went up just this afternoon, so this is sort of breaking news. So let's get into this. HempFest, the annual protestival, as it's called in quotes, that has been held in Seattle every summer for the last 27 years, relies on payments by sponsors to help cover its expenses. Now that cannabis is legal in Washington, state-licensed cannabis businesses, which have an interest in supporting the legal reforms promoted at HempFest, should be a reliable source of revenue. But under a new interpretation of state limits on cannabis advertising, the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board says such companies may not display any sign that refers to them at HempFest, even in connection with purely informational activities aimed at promoting debate about cannabis policies. In a lawsuit filed yesterday in Thurston County Superior Court, Hempfest and 2 cannabis retailers argue that the new rule violates their rights to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition for redress of grievances under both the First Amendment and the state constitution. This is odd to me. There's more to this, and we'll get into it, but this is very strange. I mean, you know, the government wants to control what, you know, or have a say in what signs they think are appropriate to be displayed at an event called Hempfest. This is bizarre. Like, what are they trying to accomplish? And by they, I mean the government. What are they trying to do with this? I mean, this is just strange. Are they doing this just to menace these people, the promoters that are putting on this festival, or what? It doesn't even make any sense to me. What is the motive? All right, so it says here, the new WSLCB policy is, quote, so overreaching and restrictive as to be unconstitutional, unquote, says Hempfest director Vivian McPeak. Quote, it is imperative that Washingtonians have access to accurate and up-to-date information regarding the cannabis products they purchase and consume, and that those citizens and others are able to identify the source of that information. Businesses engaged in the cannabis industry in Washington state should also have the legal right to publicly show their support for political issues and causes of their choosing. The WSLCB's interpretation of our state's ad restrictions prevent businesses from doing so, unquote. I mean, to me, and there's more here, but to me that would be like, you know, I can relate it to this with my background in the music industry, and I've done some concert promotion in my time and so forth. It would be like if you have one of these big festivals or one of these big tours, you know, like Ozfest or something, right? You have one of these big tours and you know, the government tries to tell the promoters of the tour or the festival, well, these sponsors that you have on your tour for any of the tour stops in our states, your sponsors can't have any signage up at that particular tour stop in the arena. Or they can have signage up, but they can't have, I don't know, any information about their companies or whatever it is. I mean, this is really bizarre on multiple levels. This is very, very strange. So it says here, the First Amendment argument is complicated by the fact that cannabis is still prohibited by federal law. So what? I mean, that to me is irrelevant. But McPeak is right that sweeping censorship like WSLCB's sign ban would ordinarily be unconstitutional under Supreme Court precedents dealing with political and commercial speech. And Article 1 of Washington's Constitution, like the First Amendment, guarantees freedom of speech as well as, quote, the right of petition and of the people peaceably to assemble for the common good, unquote. The WSLCB's policy is based on a broad reading of cannabis, quote, advertising, which state law prohibits within 1,000 feet of a public park. Oh, that's how they're doing it. One of the many state rules aimed at limiting exposure of anyone younger than 21, the minimum cannabis purchase age, to messages promoting cannabis consumption. Hempfest, which in recent years has attracted about 100,000 people annually, is held in Seattle's Myrtle Edwards Park and Centennial Park, authorized by all the requisite permits. Again, now, the absurdity of it. It's called Hempfest. You can try to restrict whatever you want in terms of advertising or promoting cannabis if you're the government there, but the event is called Hempfest. You can't stop the event. I'm sure there are people who tried. The event is going on. It is literally called Hempfest. And by the way, do you think that if this event goes on, but there's no advertising there or any pro-cannabis message at this event that is called HempFest? Do you honestly believe that that's going to prevent young people from being interested in cannabis? One of the many reasons why the war on drugs is such an enormous failure, one of the many reasons, is that it doesn't actually prevent people from doing something that they want to do just because it's illegal. I mean, I say it all the time. If drugs being illegal prevents people from doing them, why do we have drug problems in this country to begin with? You know, it doesn't, all you do is you force the entire industry underground. So you have a black market, an underground market, which has other negative consequences too. That's why you end up with drug dealers shooting each other in the streets. Because you have this illegal underground market where that's how you move up in the trade. If you want a promotion, you don't, go through a performance review and maybe get some continuing education credits and, try to impress the boss. No, actually, in the drug trade, I think the way you get a promotion is you shoot whoever currently has the job you want, and then you try to step in. That's why in cities across the country, whenever there's like a major drug bust and everyone in town gets really excited, oh, look what the police did. They caught all these people at once. Then you see this big uptick in violence on the streets immediately after. Why? Because every time you take a drug dealer off the streets, you've created a job opportunity for whoever wants to replace that drug dealer. And again, how do they do it? There's usually some violence involved. Why? Because it's an underground market. It's a black market. Let's see. The WSLCB had previously agreed that the, quote, use of a business trade name on a booth or identified as part of a sponsorship level would not constitute a violation of cannabis advertising laws and rules, unquote. It therefore told its licensees that they, quote, can use trademark business names at the event without the need for required cannabis warnings as required on product advertising, unquote. But under the new interpretation announced in April, isn't that nice, by the way? This is really the libertarian in me coming out. Isn't it nice that whenever it isn't convenient and easy for the government to use the laws to hurt the American people in some way, there's an easy way around it. You just interpret the law differently. And if you choose to interpret the law differently, it may be challenged in court. But in the meantime, the damage is being done to somebody's business or businesses. It's quite the racket there. Let's see. So it adds that, again, this is under the new interpretation. Quote, licensees may attend these events and have a non-commercial sign as long as the licensee and or the message does not reference or otherwise promote a cannabis licensed business or its products, unquote. So the new interpretation just boxes everyone out, in other words. As a result of that confusing directive, HempFest's complaint says state licensed cannabis businesses are, quote, unable to determine whether any booth they may set up at Seattle HempFest to disseminate information concerning their support of cannabis law reform or to educate the public about any effects of cannabis use or consumption or the history of cannabis use, abuse, and criminalization can hear their business names, logos, or address, or whether their booth can even identify their names and or logos, unquote. That uncertainty, not surprisingly, has had a chilling effect on HempFest sponsorships. According to the complaint, past sponsors have said, quote, they are not able to sponsor a Seattle HempFest in light of recent reports of the WSLCB position, unquote. So again, this is the government just, just crushing businesses. Got their thumbs right on them. Arbitrarily. Just by taking a law and reinterpreting it. Let's see. Hempfest argues that the new policy is, quote, excessive, overbroad, and unreasonable, and fails to directly advance government interests in limiting or restricting the use of cannabis by underage persons or any other legitimate governmental interests, and also is more extensive than necessary to serve any legitimate government interest. Furthermore, the restrictions are not narrowly tailored to serve a substantial or compelling government interest, unquote. Even before this expansion, Washington's cannabis advertising restrictions seemed constitutionally suspect under the logic of Lorillard Tobacco versus Riley, the 2001 case in which the U.S. Supreme Court, overturned state restrictions on outdoor tobacco ads. Those rules, like Washington's, were aimed at shielding minors from ads for products they are not legally allowed to consume. The court nevertheless held that the restrictions swept too broadly, barring outdoor tobacco advertising from, quote, a substantial portion of Massachusetts' largest cities, and in some places amounting to nearly a complete ban on the communication of truthful information about smokeless tobacco and cigars and adult consumers, unquote. To adult consumers. But the court also has held that the First Amendment does not protect, quote, commercial speech related to illegal activity, unquote, which, as far as the federal government is concerned, includes producing and selling cannabis. This is part of why something needs to be done about this federally to end the war on drugs. In this case, however, Hempfest argues that the WSLCB is squelching non-commercial speech by discouraging cannabis businesses from participating in the festival. McPeak notes that, quote, to single out particular speakers and businesses and prevent them from speaking on matters of public debate has been condemned in numerous U.S. Supreme Court cases, unquote. And regardless of how federal courts would apply the First Amendment, Hempfest is also pressing claims under the state constitution. Douglas Hyatt, one of the attorneys representing Hempfest, says federal cannabis prohibition should not be an issue in state court. Quote, I don't think our attorney general will be able to argue the federal position, unquote, which implicates state officials in money laundering. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting angle. Let me start that quote over. I don't think our attorney general will be able to argue the federal position, which implicates state officials in money laundering via marijuana tax collection and other federal felonies. We are in state court, and I don't think it's relevant in this state. It's legal, unquote. So in other words, the state attorney general, can't say in court, can't implicate state officials. It's money laundering. In other words, she's saying, look, the state, if you accept that this is still illegal federally, the state is doing money laundering by collecting taxes, state taxes, on the production and sale of a product that is still federally illegal. That's a very smart way for her to argue that. Let's see. Jesus, already almost 5. These shows are flying by lately. So that's what's going on in Seattle with Hempfest. Let's find one more quick thing before we run up to the top of the hour. We were talking... you know what? We should talk about this. Maybe we want to save that. I want to get into the this issue of the Saudi arms sales, but we'll actually do that after the break. Let's hit this quickly because we can kind of do just a brief update on what we were talking about yesterday for most of the show with Trump's trade war and the tariffs, etc., and this threat to put to start out with a 5% tariff on goods from Mexico and then kind of ramp it up as we go if Mexico doesn't figure out a way to stop people from crossing the border into the U.S. and stop the flow of drugs and et cetera, I guess. Trump has not been particularly specific with what he expects Mexico to accomplish. So this may end up not happening. There has been a bipartisan effort in Congress to overrule Trump on this. And it may or may not be veto-proof. But ultimately, they'll roll over. I mean, usually Chuck Grassley is like one of the few people, Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa, who really will try to stand firm on tariffs because he doesn't like them. But even he usually caves anyway, or at least that's been the pattern so far. But here's what's happening now. So according to Reuters, hope grows for deal to ward off Trump's tariffs on Mexican imports. This just went up a little while ago, actually. So this is really the newest information on this. Hope grew today for a deal to avoid the U.S. imposing tariffs on Mexican goods in return for Mexico doing more to halt illegal immigration. But President Donald Trump said he was willing to go ahead with the import duties if he is not satisfied. Trump said he thinks Mexico wants to reach an agreement to stop a new trade war, one that analysts believe might tip its economy into a recession, Mexico's economy. While a White House trade advisor and senior Republican U.S. lawmakers predicted that Washington might not introduce the proposed tariffs. Trump said during a visit to Ireland, I didn't even realize he was in Ireland. Well, yeah, he's makes sense while he's over there. Quote, Mexico can stop it. They have to stop it. Otherwise, we just won't be able to do business. It's a very simple thing, and I think they will stop it. I think they want to do something. I think they want to make a deal, and they sent their top people to try and do it, unquote. Frustrated by the lack of progress on a signature issue from his 2016 campaign, Trump unexpectedly told Mexico last week to take a harder line on curbing illegal immigration or face 5% tariffs on all its exports to the U.S. starting on Monday, rising to as much as 25% later in the year. U.S. border officers apprehended more than 132,000 people crossing from Mexico in May, the administration said today, the highest monthly total in more than a decade, and reaching what officials said were crisis levels. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, I don't know if I'm saying that. I think that's the first time I've ever said the Mexican president's name, said he was optimistic that the talks in Washington today, hosted by Vice President Mike Pence, could lead to an agreement. And by the way, I mean, that would be great for Trump because he does risk, if they don't just, if the Republicans don't roll over for him, like they usually end up doing anyway, this would present an off-ramp out of this where he doesn't have to risk the potential embarrassment of not being able to go through with this if Congress votes to not allow it. And like I said, if they go that route, I mean, if they have enough votes to override a Trump veto, then they can legislatively prevent the tariffs from happening. Because like I was saying yesterday on the show, who thinks this is a good idea other than Trump himself? And I know a lot of you MAGA folks, I'm sure, think it's great because it's Trump's idea. And, he's this brilliant guy. He's a stable genius, But but I don't know who else. I don't know if there's an economist somewhere who's into it. It certainly doesn't seem like most Republicans or Democrats have any appetite for this at all. Let's see. So Lopez Obrador has received an official list of U.S. products that could be subject to retaliatory tariffs if the duties threatened by Trump take effect, officials said in Mexico City. The list is principally tailored toward products from agricultural and industrial states regarded as Trump's electoral base, according to one of the sources. Trump has faced resistance within his own Republican Party over the threatened tariffs, with many lawmakers concerned about the potential impact on cross-border trade and on U.S. businesses and consumers. Because remember, like we were talking about yesterday, we're the ones who end up paying it. A tariff is a tax. and we're the ones who pay for it. Trump likes to spin it as, no, if you put a tariff on Mexico, the Mexicans are paying for it. If you put tariffs on China, the Chinese are paying. No, we end up paying for them because the stuff we buy from those countries now costs us more. That's the most basic of economic principles there. John Thune, the number 2 Senate Republican, told reporters, quote, "We have conveyed our concerns to the administration. There are a good number of Republican senators who have expressed both publicly and privately to the White House their concerns about this," unquote. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro told CNN Trump's threatened tariffs might not be needed, quote, "precisely because we have the Mexicans' attention," unquote, on stemming illegal immigration. So they're looking for an off-ramp, which is good. That's good news. If the tariffs go ahead, the United States would be in a serious dispute with 2 of its 3 top trading partners. U.S. relations with China have worsened in the past month as Washington said Beijing have imposed initial tariffs on each other's imports. Mexican officials will offer a long list of things in today's talks to avoid the duties, said Chuck Grassley, Republican chairman of the U.S. Senate Finance Committee. Grassley said a possible deal could be announced on Thursday night. So by tomorrow night, we'll know. Hopefully. Grassley represents the farming state of Iowa, which exports pork and other agriculture products to Mexico and might be hit by Mexican retaliation in a prolonged trade dispute. Some Republicans have told the White House not to count on the same level of support within the party that Trump received earlier this year when the president declared a national emergency to divert funds to build barriers at the border. Democrats opposed that move. The proposed tariffs have also been criticized by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. What do they know, right? And industry groups due to concerns about increased costs for U.S. businesses and consumers of imported Mexican goods, from cars and auto parts to beer and fruit. Yes, again, we end up paying for that. The number of people... All right, I'm going to... we'll finish the article. We're running past the top of the hour, but we got another hour. The number of people apprehended on the U.S.-Mexico border is at its highest monthly level in more than a decade, but it's still lower than at other peak periods of illegal immigration since the 70s. U.S. authorities have said they are overwhelmed not so much by the number of migrants, but by a shift in the type of person turning up at the border in recent years. Increasing numbers of Central American families and unaccompanied minors seeking asylum after fleeing criminal violence in their home countries have been turning themselves in to U.S. border agents who have long been geared up to catch mainly single adult Mexicans trying to cross clandestinely. That's a hard word for me to say. Clandestinely. Quote, "Our nation is experiencing an unprecedented border security and humanitarian crisis at the southwest border, both at and between our ports of entry," unquote, said Randy Howe, the executive director of operations for Office of Field Operations at U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Howe said that on Tuesday alone, CBP apprehended more than 4,100 people and had 19,293 people in custody. Wow. That's 19,293 people in custody. That's incredible. "We are bursting at the seams. It is unsustainable," he said. Mexican Foreign Secretary Marcelo Ebrard is expected to try to show the White House at today's talks that authorities are taking steps to stem the flow of migrants, with Mexico detaining double the number each day than it was a year ago. Lopez Obrador has said he wants to persuade Washington to help tackle the causes of migration by investing in Central America to create jobs and speed up economic development. The Mexican economy will likely slip into recession this year if Trump follows through on the tariff threat, a Reuters poll of market analysts showed. An industry source who has met with the Mexican delegation said that ideas being floated to solve the dispute are more border controls and joint security exercises on Mexico's southern border with Guatemala, which Central American migrants pass through on their way to the United States. Now, something in there, in fairness, I mean, it is worth pointing out that, yes, the tariffs do hurt Mexico, and they do hurt Mexico's economy. So if you're, I guess, if you're looking at it from the point of view of, well, we're gonna punish Mexico for allowing all this illegal immigration, for allowing the flow of drugs, etc., into the U.S., we're gonna punish them for that. That makes sense. But if you're going to punish someone, you don't also want to inflict damage on yourself at the same time. Don't cut your nose off to spite your face. So again, it's interesting to rattle that saber, but if you do it, just like, well, again, I mean, I hate to keep going back to the farmers, but that's the part of this whole trade war thing that infuriates me the most. You have these farmers in the Midwest who are getting crushed by this trade war, and then we end up having to bail them out. Trump says, okay, well, we'll just bail you out. Well, the taxpayers end up having to pay for that. So, it's one thing to want to punish another country or to use something as leverage, but the self-inflicted wounds from that, I don't think are worth it. So we are past the top of the hour, so we will take a break. And, oh yeah, I'll play this. This is something fun. You are listening to Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live on WMNH 95.3. We got another hour to go, so stay with us.
The following is a very special episode of Firefly Funhouse.
Today I have something super serious to talk to you about. Exercise!
We're really glad that you're our friend, and this is a friendship that'll never ever end.
When it comes to mind, body, and spirit, to be at your best, you gotta look good and feel good. This is my friend Huskus the Pig Boy. And as you can see, he doesn't take very good care of himself. But the chocolate feels so good in my little piggy belly. I want more. Oh, Huskus. Nobody's gonna tell you this, buddy. But one day, all this excessiveness and gluttony is gonna come back to bite you in the tail. But one day, you could be great. One day, people are gonna tell you that you're a genius. They're gonna say you have the whole world in your hands. Really? Yeah! Now both of you better get your act together, or you're... Yowie wowie! Hold on, boss. Huskus will get his act together. Trust me. And I know the perfect way to start. Hit it!
You got it, Tim.
Now shake those hips and let your backbone slip. Pull up your pants and do the muscle man dance. Just follow my voice. You don't really have a choice. And pull up your pants and do the muscle man dance. Now wiggle your behind. Erase your mind. Pull up your pants and do the muscle man dance. you're ready for a night out on the town. Thank you, man. I feel better already. See what happens when you trust me? And remember, my fireflies, I will always light the way. And all you have to do is let me in. Bye. See ya. See ya.
We're really glad that you're our friend, and this is a friendship that'll never ever end.
The houses caught fire in the fields, and the light was astounding, I guess. I spent many years in the darkness. Oh, I'm tired of trying, I did my best. We all need someone to love and to hold. We all need shelter to keep us from the cold. We all need laughter when life gets hard. We all need someone to love us for who we are right now. The fireworks sang and danced in the night. So I hid in my bed, so scared that I'll die. I want the whole world at my funeral. Watch as the rainbows explode in the sky. We all need someone to love and to hold. We all need shelter to keep us from the cold. We all need laughter when life gets hard. We all need someone to love us for who we are right now. No regrets if we walk the same roads. We won't forget who we are. No regret if we walk these new roads. We may forget who we are. No regrets if we walk the same roads. We won't forget who we are. We all need someone to love and to hold. We all need shelter to keep us from the cold. We all need laughter when life gets hard. We all need someone to love us for who we are. We all need someone to love and to hold. We all need shelter to keep us from the cold. We all need laughter when life gets hard. We all need someone to love us for who we are.
If you're a new listener, just type in Pentagon tested gay bomb on Iraq. They didn't consider using it. They've used it on our troops. In Vietnam, they sprayed PCP on the troops, Jacob's Ladder. You think PCP, some horse tranquilizer or something? They got stuff that'll whack your brain permanently. Gay bomb. Gay bomb. Brain chips in the troops. They give the troops brain chips in the troops. They give the troops brain chips in the troops. They give the troops special vaccines that are really nanotech that already re-engineer their brains. Gay bomb. Yeah, there it is, the gay bomb. Look it up for yourself. I mean, this is what they're... What do you think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby. Gay bomb. And I'm not saying people didn't naturally have homosexual feelings. I'm not even getting into it. Quite frankly, I mean, give me a break. You think I'm like, oh, shots fired, so if you're bashing it because I don't like gay people. I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? The friggin' frogs gay. I'm sick of being social engineered. It's not funny. Do you understand that? I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. I'm sick of being social engineered. It's not funny. They turn the friggin' frogs gay. Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Look it up for yourself. I mean, this is what they're... What do you think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby. Gay bomb. Brain chips in the trips. Brain chips in the trips. Serious crap. I'm sick of being social engineered. It's not funny. Look it up for yourself. I mean, this is what they're... What do you think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby. Yeah, there it is, the gay bomb. Gay bomb. Gay bomb.
Jeez, how much dope have you smoked? I mean, you know, already
Look it up for yourself. It's
right?
a gay bomb, baby.
God.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are well in hour number 2. Matt Connarton Unleashed in the afternoon. We're live on WMNH 95.3 FM in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 in Manchester. Streaming at WMNHradio.org. And on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. It is Wednesday, June 5th. 2019. 603-250-6007 is the number to call in the next 43 minutes or less. 603-250-6007. And of course, you can always opine in the Facebook live chat as well. I see Bill Muckler in there. Hello, Bill. Welcome. Bill says, good afternoon, Matt. By the way, so in case you're just joining us, if you didn't hear the top of the show, I want to mention this again. A programming note. Tomorrow, as my guest, and he'll be here right at the top of the show, the great Rob Azevedo will be discussing his new book, Notes from the Last Breath Farm, A Music Junkie's Quest to Be Heard. I look forward to reading this tonight. I'm going to do it like Peter White did it. I'm going to read it the night before, so it's really fresh in my mind. But no, this looks like this is going to be a really fun read. So really looking forward to talking to Rob about this. Of course, if you're a regular listener of the station, you may also already be familiar with Rob because he hosts a show called Granite State of Mind, which is Fridays at 6 p.m. immediately following this program. And he's been making the rounds here at the station. He was recently on the morning show with Peter White, and Peter did a fantastic interview with Rob, and he was also on the weekly Die On. So I look forward to sitting down with Rob tomorrow. Rob does a lot in the music scene, of course. You know, he has guests on all the time on his show, Granite State of Mind, and I know he goes out to a lot of shows and is, very involved in a lot of things. So I'm really looking forward to him, and he's done a lot in terms of journalism as well. So we're going to talk about all of it tomorrow, so that's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to that. So be sure to tune in for that, and of course, phone lines will be open, so if anyone has questions or anything for Rob during the interview, you can plan to do that, or in the Facebook live chat, of course. Let's see. And I want to mention one more time, in case he's listening, I don't want him to think I forgot, today is Ryan Gorman's birthday. So happy birthday, Ryan Gorman. Haven't had him on the show lately, but I always tell him he's welcome anytime. I love his energy. It's always fun having him on. Let's see. 603-250-6007 is the number. And let's get into this because I said I wanted to talk about this. This might be the one thing, the Republicans tend to roll over on most of whatever Trump wants. I'm not sure why this one particular thing is different, but it seems to be different. Trump is really facing bipartisan pushback over arms sales to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. And they may not roll over on this one, the other Republicans, Historically, whatever, I mean, it's very much Trump's party now. And again, not to belabor the point of tariffs, but because we've talked about that a lot lately on the show. But I always use that as Exhibit A. I saw a segment with George Will, conservative commentator. He was talking about it on a segment that I saw that aired on television the other day. That was one of the examples he used as well about how, the Republican Party was for generations the party of free trade and didn't like tariffs, free traders, free market capitalism, etc. And then Trump came along and said, nope, we like tariffs now, and we're now the party of protectionism, not free trade. And the entire Republican Party sort of shrugged and said, oh, okay, so now we're the party of protectionism and we're no longer the party of free trade. So that's typically how it goes. Whatever daddy says, that's the new paradigm. But this feels different. So let's get into this. Now, this is the latest from NBC News. So Trump's fellow Republicans say Congress's role as a check on presidential power is at stake. Senators from both sides of the aisle today said they plan to block U.S. arms sales to Saudi Arabia and other Arab states in a bipartisan rebuke of Trump, saying that he had to act to safeguard Congress's right to review weapons deals, saying they had to act, rather. The announcement from the bipartisan group of senators was the first response from Congress after the Trump administration bypassed lawmakers on May 24 to push through more than $8 billion worth of arms sales to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Jordan. Congress, by law, reviews all arms sales, but Secretary of State Mike Pompeo declared a national security emergency to push through the package without congressional approval, citing what he called an urgent threat posed by Iran. Now, in case you haven't put your boots on, you should. My BS meter just redlines reading that. There is no threat from Iran. Iran is not going to attack the United States. And we've talked about this a lot on the show, too. There is no threat here. I mean, at one point, and Trump has actually really backed off on his rhetoric recently. For a while it sounded, he was doing a lot of saber rattling in terms of Iran. Almost, not at the level that he was saber rattling with North Korea initially when he was going around saying things like, we might have to destroy North Korea. I don't know. Now he and Kim Jong-un are having quite the bromance, even though they can't get anything agreed to. And allegedly, Kim Jong-un has actually been executing some of the people involved in those negotiations for not being able to get something done with the United States. I thought Amazon treated their employees rough. Wow. How'd you like to work for Kim Jong-un? Anyway. But there is no threat from Iran. So that's BS. Iran is never going to attack the United States. If anything happens, like I said, I was very worried for a while there about a potential Gulf of Tonkin type scenario where the United States was going to push Iran into launching some sort of an attack. And then we say, oh, there you go, now we're at war. And I get very worried about that because I see that as a potential flashpoint for World War III, because then if the Chinese come in and the Russians come in, and the Russians will come in. I don't know if the Chinese will. The Russians will in that scenario. You better believe it. That's a big problem. Okay? So let's stipulate that. So that's just total BS what Pompeo said. Very, very, very weak tea, as I believe the British say. The senators are introducing 22 separate joint resolutions of disapproval for each of the sales, setting up a possible confrontation with Trump that could play out in the coming months. If the resolutions are adopted and Trump vetoes the measures, Congress would have to secure a 2/3 majority to override a presidential veto, which Republicans running for re-election are not going to want to do. So maybe ultimately they roll over on this too. Maybe this isn't that much different. It's unclear if the legislation would secure the two-thirds majority needed to override a presidential veto, but there is growing concern over the political spectrum over the administration's approach to Saudi Arabia and its treatment of Congress. In a vote in March to end U.S. military support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen and check presidential war powers, 7 Republican senators joined Democrats to pass the bill. Trump then vetoed the legislation. The legislative action was necessary, quote, to protect and reaffirm Congress's role of approving arms sales to foreign governments, unquote, said a statement from Republican Senators Lindsey Graham, Todd Young, Rand Paul, and Democratic Senators Bob Menendez, Patrick Leahy, Chris Murphy, and Jack Reed. The senator's statement also said, quote, the manner in which the administration has moved forward with these sales is unprecedented and is at odds with long-standing practice and cooperation between the Congress and its executive branch that results in the approval of billions of dollars of arms sales annually, unquote. It is worth noting that one of those Republican senators who signed on to that statement is Lindsey Graham. Miss Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Lindsey loves the president, but just doesn't like this. Let's see. The dispute over the arms sales is the latest sign of friction over a range of issues between Trump and his fellow Republicans in Congress, many of whom are frustrated at the administration's handling of nominations and its attempts to avoid congressional oversight. Republican lawmakers warned the White House this week not to go ahead with the threatened tariffs against Mexico. The new arms sales faced opposition in Congress partly because of the administration's decision to bypass lawmakers, but also because of growing outrage over the Saudi-led coalition's war in Yemen, and which is a humanitarian nightmare. We should all be outraged over our government's involvement in that. But it just, why is it that when it comes to anything involving the Saudis, we're okay? Collectively, as a country, we're just kind of okay with whistling past the graveyard. Why? Like, not to, I mean, I hate to bring up 9/11 again, but look, you know, it's not even like a conspiracy theory type of idea, even though it almost sounds like one if you say it, but it's facts that I think everybody's pretty much accepted by now, that most of those hijackers were Saudis. They were recruited from the Wahhabi tribe in Saudi Arabia. They were Saudis. Saudi Arabia, they're state sponsors of terror. Yet we managed to just kind of be okay with Saudi Arabia. Why? Is it because we feel like we need them as a bulwark against Iran? Is that it? Is it that simple? We got pretty upset over the murdering of Khashoggi. But, well, at least most of us did. Trump administration seemed pretty okay with it. You know, they found ways to try to spin it. Oh, Khashoggi was really a terrorist sympathizer, so it's okay that they murdered him. Nobody comes right out and says that directly, but that's the message. I saw Sebastian Gorka, who's a pretty disgusting and gross individual. I saw Sebastian Gorka. Perhaps I'll attempt to do an impression of him. I saw him on C-SPAN, and he said something like, well, we certainly don't endorse the murdering of a journalist by the government, but it is worth noting that Khashoggi was not necessarily a great person. I mean, he did seem to have some sort of affinity for some enemies of America. So we can't be getting too upset about the fact that he was beheaded by the Saudis, now can we? I felt like with that particular impression, because I recognize I'm self-aware enough to know I'm not good at them, I thought it started off pretty rough, and then I felt like I was kind of getting into it and finding the groove of it there, and I was actually kind of pulling it off. But then toward the end, I feel like I kind of was falling back out of it. Anyway, so there's my Sebastian Gorka impression. What a disgusting individual. That guy, Seb Gorka. In other words, he basically used the George Zimmerman defense for the murdering of Khashoggi. That's how he defended the Saudis. If you don't know what I mean, you remember Trayvon Martin when he was killed by George Zimmerman, and a lot of conservatives who were very excited to defend their new Second Amendment hero, George Zimmerman, they would say things like, well, you know, Trayvon Martin, he was no angel. They found marijuana in his bedroom. I had conversations with people who would say that to me. They searched his room and they found marijuana. So in other words, using that to justify, no, he deserved to die because he was some sort of criminal, apparently. It's really disgusting the way. I guess you can defend pretty much anything by just picking out one bad thing and saying, well, what about this? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. That's just something. Sebastian Gorka really is just awful. No offense, anyone listening who happens to be a fan of the guy, but there's probably, I mean, you might be a sociopath if you're a fan of Sebastian Gorka. That's all I'm saying. You should probably see someone about it before you hurt somebody. Let's see. Okay, so the dispute, again, this is from NBCnews.com. The dispute over the arms sales is the latest sign of friction over a range of issues between Trump and his fellow Republicans in Congress, many of whom are frustrated at the administration's handling of nominations in an attempt to avoid congressional oversight. Republican lawmakers warned the White House this week not to go ahead with threatened tariffs against Mexico. The new arms sales faced opposition in Congress, partly because of the administration's decision to bypass lawmakers. Okay, I think I read that part already. But also because of growing outrage over the Saudi-led coalition's war in Yemen and the killing of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. I heard that Khashoggi was not a big fan of Sebastian Gorka and may have written something negative about him, so he probably got what was coming to him. Let's see. Arguing against the arms sales, Miss Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who loves the president and does not like, even when the president says terrible things about John McCain, Miss Lindsey feels that the president is truly a great man and wants to always work with him on everything. Well, the president very much appreciates your loyalty, Miss Lindsey. I, Sebastian Gorka, very much appreciate your loyalty to this president. Well, it's the least I can do, Seb. You know, I just love Mr. Trump. I just think he's fine. I just love him so much. And even though we disagree on some things, I'm really not crazy about this tariff issue or these arms sales to Saudi Arabia, for example. But at the end of the day, if I have to choose between him and my late friend, Senator John McCain, you know I will always choose Mr. Trump. Even with all of his faults, he is truly a great man. Well, Mr. Trump thanks you for that. Okay, I don't know why I keep going with that. Anyway, so arguing against the arms sales, Graham, an ally of Trump on most issues, referred to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS as he's often known, his alleged involvement in Khashoggi's killing. The CIA has concluded that the Crown Prince approved of the killing of Khashoggi, a Saudi national who resided in Virginia. Graham, who leads a subcommittee that oversees funding for the State Department, said, quote, "While I understand that Saudi Arabia is a strategic ally, the behavior of Mohammed bin Salman cannot be ignored. Now, it is not the time to do business as usual with Saudi Arabia. Let's see. Menendez, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, who I have no impression of to do, said, quote, regrettably, Secretary Pompeo's abuse of this emergency authority has broken the arms sales process, unquote. If the Secretary of State fails to withdraw his emergency declaration and submit the arms sales for congressional review, said Menendez, quote, I am prepared to move forward with any and all options to nullify the licenses at issue for both, excuse me, for both Saudi Arabia and UAE, and eliminate any ability for the administration to bypass Congress in future arms sales, unquote. I wish Lindsey Graham had said that instead, just so I could talk like him more. I think that's kind of fun. Senator Lindsey Graham might have to guest host the show one day. The planned arms sales, maybe on a Friday. I might do that Friday. The planned arms sales include mortar bombs, engines, and maintenance support for F-15 fighter jets for Saudi Arabia, and equipment for AH-64 helicopters, laser-guided rockets, Javelin anti-rank missiles, Patriot missiles, and F-16 fighter jet engine parts for the United Arab Emirates. But the most controversial weapons in the deal are precision-guided bombs, which would almost certainly be used in the Saudi-led air war in Yemen. Oh, we have a visitor. The United States has supplied tens of thousands of the bombs to Saudi Arabia and others in the coalition, said William Hartung, director of the Arms and Security Project at the Washington-based Center for International Policy. The emergency package unveiled by Pompeo last month will include, quote, a large tranche of bombs, probably thousands of them, unquote, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Obama suspended the sale of the bombs in the closing months of his administration over concerns that the Saudis were failing to take precautions to avoid killing civilians. Well, and then there's the whole, being state sponsors of terror thing. Harding said, quote, it was a great signal to the Saudis after intelligence had shown that they were not reducing civilian casualties, unquote. Human rights advocates, AIDS groups, and UN investigators have accused Riyadh of conducting indiscriminate bombing, but the kingdom insists it seeks to minimize killing civilians. Oh, how nice of them. So there you go. So we will see where that all ends up. But we have a guest. We have a visitor. Hi. Oh, I didn't turn your mic on.
Hi.
Hi. Care to introduce yourself?
It's me, Paulie.
Oh, Paul Cormier.
How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Good. Please carry on.
Well, that was the end of that. That was really the end of that story.
I just needed a place to sit.
Why is that?
Oh, I was walking.
Oh, and now you're exhausted?
I'm exhausted.
Wow. How far did you walk?
About a block.
And now you're spent. I
just got out of work, and I wanted to come to my favorite afternoon radio show.
Wow. You mean it's not Howie Carr?
No, it's the Matt Connarton Unleashed in the Afternoon show.
Wow. Well, I'm honored.
And I am loyal to WMNH, mostly because I work here, but they call this here Manchester's only downtown radio station.
Yes.
But is it?
I think so.
Is Elm Street? I mean, it's Elm Street's only radio station.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's downtown.
Well, yeah, but the Mill Yard is located downtown, right? It's 1 block away.
Oh.
And there are 2 radio stations a block away from here.
Oops.
Right? Well, am I saying something out of line here? The Mill Yard is located in lovely downtown Manchester, and there are 2 radio stations literally about 4,000 feet from here. If that, maybe 2,000 feet from here. Here, where we're sitting.
Oh, we do kind of count that as downtown, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So I'm just thinking. So this is Elm Street's only radio station.
Oh, no.
So I don't know if we should let Joe change the...
Yeah. Wow. You've ruined everything, Paul Cormier.
I know. It's like a parody.
You've ruined everything. You might as well have come in here and said there's no Santa.
Sorry.
My goodness. No, it's funny because Rob, coincidentally, because I'm going to be interviewing tomorrow Rob Azevedo on the show, and he always says, see, I never say it. I always say we're emanating from downtown Manchester.
Right.
But Rob always says on his show from WMNH, downtown Manchester's only radio station.
Right. But we're not.
Does anybody else say that other than Rob?
Yeah.
Does Peter say
that's our catchphrase when we do the bump. Like the main, you're listening to WMNH, frequency modulation.
Yeah, but the legal ID doesn't say...
It doesn't say Manchester Zone?
No, it doesn't say...
Manchester's only downtown radio
It doesn't say only.
Okay.
No, because it's really just... Because those are really just for technical information.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't say that.
Okay. Because I know Peter says it, too.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Yes.
But does he say only?
Yes, he says Manchester's only downtown radio.
Have you brought this up to Peter?
I have not.
Oh,
it only
wow.
really occurred to me recently that we're not the only downtown radio station.
Well, we almost had... Remember when we almost had ESPN in downtown?
Yes, I do remember.
They were going to open... And I don't know what happened to that, but they ended up not coming.
Right. That would have been the only ESPN in downtown Manchester.
Right, that's true. Or it would have been downtown Manchester's only sports station.
That's correct.
Mm. You just blew my mind, Paul Cormier. You just blew my mind. Well, WMNH is ruined. We should probably just shut it down.
Well, we can think of something else that's Manchester's own.
That's true.
The only radio station in Manchester where the personalities don't get paid?
Oh, my goodness.
How about that?
Oh.
I mean, not that we're complaining. We love it here.
It's a little wordy.
We love it here. Well, we can reword it.
Yeah. I don't know. I just, well, how about we're the Manchester's only downtown radio station above Margaritas?
That works.
Wouldn't it? Doesn't it? Watch, and then we'll find out that there's a station we don't know about operating on the 5th floor
above
or something.
Us.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, that would be terrible.
Manchester's own radio station above Margaritas. I love that.
Yes,
That's
yes.
perfect.
Oh, boy. Bobby B says, I thought I heard that on the last commercial.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think it says downtown's only.
Manchester's only downtown radio.
I don't think it's, because it wouldn't say that in the legal ID. Does it say that in?
I hear it somewhere other than just you guys saying it. It's somewhere.
I
on
wonder.
the
I
station.
wonder if in one of the ads for Peter's show it says it. Maybe. Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh well, we'll just. Well,
And one of the two stations I'm thinking of now has a sister station. So there's technically 3 radio stations other than ours in downtown Manchester.
Oh man. Well, all right. So, Manchester, one of Manchester's 4 downtown radio stations. I don't know. That doesn't sound that great, does it? Boy, that doesn't exactly inspire you
How
to
about
tune
the
in.
best damn radio station in downtown Manchester?
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the best damn radio station anywhere.
Anywhere. Remember Rock 101 about 30 years ago? The best damn rock.
Oh yeah. Because 30 years ago that was pretty edgy to say "damn" in
Well,
your
it was on all the
slogan.
It was on all the buses in Manchester. It used to say the best damn rock.
Yeah, yes.
Rock 101.
Yes. Bob says, yeah, we should just shut it all down.
Let's shut it down.
Wow. Fred Bonig from the Daily Ripple dropped a song in there we can play at the end of the show. Todd Fritsch, Small Town Radio. I'm not familiar with Todd Fritsch, but yeah, I'll play that later.
They play Todd Fritsch on the other 4 radio stations.
Oh no, do they? Aw, Fred, what are you doing to me? Oh, hello to George Oscar in the Facebook live chat, who says, "Hello, Matt. Hello, George, if that is your real name." Do you think that's George Oscar's real name?
You know what? I'm willing to bet that's maybe his first and middle name.
I haven't heard from EZG Eric Gagnon lately. Do you think he's upset with me?
No, I think maybe that he is one that does not complain about his health issues when they get out of control. So he's probably trying to feel better right now.
Oh, hello to the great Peter White in the Facebook live chat. Peter White, of course, host of the morning show.
Yes.
The morning show heard weekday morning, 7 to 9 a.m. with a replay from 2 to 4 p.m. right before this program right here on WMNH.
I was supposed to be in there today.
One of several downtown Manchester radio stations. Oh, you were
I was supposed to be in there this morning.
You were supposed to be in where? In here?
Into the show this morning.
What happened, Paul Cormier?
I was a little under the weather when I went to bed last night.
Oh.
Couldn't make it.
Oh. You didn't catch it from Easy G, did you?
I did not catch it from Easy G.
Because I think Easy G's probably got like a big double amputation in his future.
No.
I told Peter he's probably going to have to carry Eric up here in the morning.
You should say that. What if he had that? Wouldn't you feel horrible?
I would feel like I was probably like psychic or something, like a medical intuitive. No, dude, I looked it up on WebMD. That's probably what's going to happen to him.
Well, listen. The internet is full of answers.
I know. So, yeah, it's going to be terrible. But, yeah, so Peter can, like, lug him up the stairs or something when he has to come to his entertainment report,
I guess
right?
that's true.
Pete's a big, strong guy.
But then again, he could also just put him in the elevator, bring him in.
See, I forgot about that we have the elevator.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be more comical to have to carry him up the stairs?
Yeah, but his legs are really thick at this point.
Right.
You know, so
yes.
it'd be heavy.
Well, maybe he'll have to have those cut off, too.
Right.
He'll just be a little torso with a head on it.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be great?
A torso with a head on it?
Yes. Because that would be, like, that's ratings right there. If you have an entertainment reporter who's, like, just a torso with a head on it.
Holding the papers up with his chin.
Yes. That would be wonderful.
Throwing the hippos at us.
I got a mind for this stuff, Paulie Cormier.
Paulie Cormier.
I decided it's an amalgam of Paulie C and Paul Cormier.
Oh, you got a call.
Oh, we have a call. Maybe this is Easy G.
Oh, hello, guys.
Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, this is Easy G from the road here. I'm headed home. I thought I'd give you a quick call and say Happy Hump Day.
Happy Hump Day.
Happy Hump Day to you, Easy G. So I
can barely hear you.
Hey, we've added some to our song. Are you ready to
I'll
sing
have to
with
let
me,
you
Paul?
Go. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that was a quick call.
You didn't want to hear the jingle.
He didn't want to hear the jingle.
I want to hear it.
Do you remember the jingle?
I do.
All right, you going to sing it with me?
Go right ahead.
All right, here we go. One, two.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Goldenrod. I really love your food and your ice cream. So much better than Creamland. I added to it, though. So now it goes, so much better than Creamland. So much better than Creamland. 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 Better than Creamland.
All right, you see, I like what you're going for there, but you're mentioning Creamland too much in the Goldenrod ad.
Right, but I'm emphasizing that Goldenrod is so much better than Creamland.
Right, but you should keep doing that, but you should say Goldenrod is better than Creamland. Goldenrod is better than Creamland. Goldenrod is better than Creamland. And maybe Goldenrod is better than Creamland. Goldenrod is better than Creamland. You know, longer goldenrods, shorter Creamlands.
Maybe that should be the chorus. Like maybe the verse should be the goldenrod, I really love your food and your ice cream. So much better than Creamland. And then the chorus could be the goldenrod is better than Creamland.
Yeah.
Goldenrod is better than Creamland.
So much better than Creamland.
Yeah, but see, then you're going back to the problem you were just saying.
Well, yeah, but once or twice.
Oh.
And in the background.
Oh, okay.
Like doo-wop guys, only we're saying so much better than Creamland.
Right.
Goldenrod is better than Creamland. So much better than Creamland. I really love their food and their ice cream. Goldenrod is better than Creamland.
Creamland. Oh, boy.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Makes me want to get some clam strips and cheeseburgers from Goldenrod.
Right. Well, you certainly wouldn't get them from Creamland, obviously.
No.
I mean, you could, but why would you?
It's in an alley.
Right. Let's see. George Oscar says, I like Matt's version better. Well, we're actually writing a musical, of course.
Right, yeah.
Paul Cormier and I were working on Goldenrod the musical.
Yeah, it's a work in process.
Yes, I mean it's going to take us time to put this whole thing together.
Matt and I have been collaborating for years. Don't you worry about it. Once it's on vinyl, you'll love it.
Yes. Boy, I'll tell you. Who's going to play Mr. Goldenrod in the production?
We'll find somebody. Maybe Scumpy.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Scumpy's a good actor, actually.
Yes. Have you seen him in the last two?
The last two what?
The last two. That's the short film that he's in by Terry Trainor's Narrow Street Films
yes.
on Amazon Prime.
Listen, I got to tell you, we can sit here and bust his balls for the next 3 hours about how he doesn't get this and he doesn't get proper accolades for that. But when he's in front of a camera, he's a great actor.
Yes.
And I'm not kidding.
Yeah, no.
The man knows how to act, and I'm
Yes.
fascinated by it.
Yes.
I'm fascinated by it, Scumpy. You know how to act, buddy.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. So you have seen it.
I have seen
Yes,
it.
yes.
That's how I know.
Do you think?
I mean,
do you think Peter's seen it?
He is. Yeah, I think Peter might have seen it.
Oh, okay.
And if he hasn't seen it, he should.
Yes.
Peter, you would be fascinated by this guy. He's worthy of being in show business, acting wise, from what I've seen him act in.
Right.
And I'll get the little bastard for it.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I'm jealous that he can act.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you could act. Have you tried it?
Well, I can act, but he can act better than me, I think.
What have you acted in?
I was in 2 movies as extras back when I was a kid in the early 90s.
Oh, I've seen one of. Which one is it? I've seen it. I've seen the scene.
I was in a movie called Special Agent Hudson Marr, which was a really bad B movie.
Yeah.
It was filmed here in New Hampshire back in 1990.
Yeah.
1991. And I actually played a guy who held up a convenience store at gunpoint.
Oh, okay.
And the convenience store is actually still in business here in Manchester.
Oh, wow.
On Brown Ave.
Oh.
In a strip mall. Or plaza, whatever you call them these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Just beyond,
Is
before the airport, that strip mall there.
Is that scene of you doing that? Is that on YouTube?
I don't know. I mean, just do a search for it. I have the videotape for it.
Oh, no kidding.
I don't know if it ever came out on DVD, but
yeah,
the movie's called Special Agent Hudson Marr.
No kidding.
Yeah, and
so it's the other one that I saw where you were in the stands at a baseball game.
Rules of Attraction.
Okay.
Yeah. No, actually, that was the name of the movie while they were filming it.
Oh.
That was also in 1990.
Okay.
With Kevin Pollak, Irie Gross, Julie Brown, the white Julie Brown, not the black one from MTV.
Right.
And who was the fourth one? The chick from Friends who was in the Bruce Springsteen video.
Oh, Courtney Cox.
Courtney Cox.
Yeah.
And that was filmed at Fenway Park.
Yeah.
In 1990.
Yeah.
And wow, that was a great 2 days, 2 day stretch.
Wow. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the name of the movie during filming was Rules of Attraction, and it was 2 days of 16 hours of filming both days, and then after that, the movie never came out. And then 3 years later, I'm sitting in my living room watching TV, and I see a preview for the movie.
Oh.
But it was called The Opposite Sex and How to Live with Them. So they changed the name, and it came out 3 years after it was filmed.
Yeah.
So do a Google search for that too, kids. The Opposite Sex and How to Live with Them.
And then you went and watched it and
Yeah,
saw
I got a clip of it at home.
Yeah.
I got the one clip that I was in at home. I didn't even bother to rent the movie or I've never seen the whole movie because when you do a search on like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, it's got like a 2.3 rating. It's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good actors, but probably in their low point of their career.
Oh, wow. Well, I played Solomon Grundy in second grade in the Mother Goose play.
Oh, nice.
Yes. I think I still remember my line. It was like one big long line because Mother Goose, because I come out on stage and then Mother Goose says, Solomon Grundy, what do you have to say for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, Solomon Grundy, Born on Monday, christened on Tuesday, married on Wednesday, very ill Thursday, worse on Friday, died on Saturday, end of Solomon Grundy.
Wow, you remember your line.
I remember
Can
my line.
you get up and do it for me right now?
That was kind of, there's really not much to do.
Oh, come on.
There's not a lot of emoting
Do it
going on.
topless.
It's, boy, I'll tell you, I do think there's FCC regulations against that, largely because of the amount of body hair that I have and with all this equipment. But so we could get fined for that, Paul Cormier.
No.
And then we'd only have 3 downtown radio stations here in Manchester instead of 4. That things would be really ruined. Oh,
Manchester's only downtown radio station.
Oh, wow. That just blows my mind.
You see that building behind you? That's Manchester's only 1000 Elm Street. That's it.
That is true.
Right.
Yes. So what do you? We're almost out of time, Paul Cormier.
Yes.
Do you have anything to plug?
I can see that.
Do you have new videos?
Manchester
up on,
Part 13. Dreams coming out soon, sometime this summer. Keep your eyes peeled.
Oh, very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. Jenny says, yes, topless. Yes.
You know what? I hate the music I picked, Matt.
Oh, no,
That's
really?
what's holding me up.
Oh, really?
I've discussed all the music with you privately that I've selected for this video.
Yes.
I'm thinking about doing an overhaul on the entire video.
Oh, really?
The entire thing. I might even change the title because one of the songs I'm using has to do with the title of the song and
Right.
vice versa.
Right.
So I think the reason why this video has gone nowhere is because I'm not happy with the music. So
Oh, okay. Oh, George Oscar said, "Oh, okay, hammer it out, then, boys," referring to the musical that we're writing, Goldenrod.
Yes.
Goldenrod the musical.
Goldenrod the musical, I love it.
Yes, it's going to be outstanding. I mean, I believe there is a film called Goldenrod, but that's something you might see, like when we were kids and you'd see the scrambled cable.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
How about Creamrod? Creamrod the musical.
That sounds a bit I don't know.
Rodland?
Don't they have a cream? Can't you get a cream rod at Bill's Donuts?
I think you can.
Yes.
I mean, he usually has them seasonally.
You get a Boston cream rod. Yeah.
Boston cream rod.
Yeah.
And the French cream rod.
Oh, yes. Well, we're going to start to get out of here, I think.
I think so, yes.
We've reached the end. Don't forget, tomorrow I'll be joined by Rob Azevedo.
He's awesome.
He is, absolutely. We're going to discuss his new book, Notes from the Last Breath Farm, A Music Junkie's Quest to be Heard. I'm going to read this tonight.
Are you?
I am.
Yeah, if you're going to interview him, maybe you should.
I'm doing it the same way Peter did it, because Peter read the book the day before.
Mm-hmm.
So, so it would be fresh in his mind, because it's a light read.
Yeah.
So you can just read it in a couple
Sure.
hours or whatnot. So
Yeah.
I'm going to read this tonight, so it'll be fresh in my mind tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
Cool.
I got this at the Bookery right up the street, which
Nice.
is, have you been in there?
I have not.
It's really nice.
I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah, it's really nice in there. My first time in there was a couple weeks ago when Rob did his event there for the book, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, what isn't cool where you can get a book and a sandwich and have a seat and chill, you know what I'm saying?
You can do that at Barnes & Noble. I don't think it's that cool.
I like it there too.
You like Barnes? I don't know.
I love walking into a B&N and the smell alone is fantastic. Books and coffee. Oh, I love it.
I don't know. To me, Barnes & Noble, it's like the creamland of bookstores.
Yeah, well, you do have a point.
Where the Bookery is more like Goldenrod, you know?
Yeah, you do have a point.
Barnes & Noble, it's just like, geez, you might as well be looking at books at Creamland.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Ugh.
Gross.
I know. All right.
Buzzkill.
Yeah, totally. All right, we got to go. If you missed any part of today's show, it'll be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org.
Bye, Matt.
By Paul Cormier. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to EZG for calling very, very briefly. Thank you to everybody in the Facebook live chat. And that's it for now. Talk at y'all a little bit later.